Today, we're diving into Japan's 2024 Suicide White Paper. Now, this is an annual report that gives a hard, statistical look at one of the country's most serious public health challenges. And this year, it has a really urgent message about Japan's youngest generation.
Let's just start with a single number, 513. This isn't just data on a page. This is the number of elementary, middle, and high school students who died by suicide in Japan last year.
And here's the thing that's so tough about this number. It is just one single person shy of the all-time record, which was set the year before. This figure is really the emotional heart of this entire report. It signals a crisis that just isn't going away, and one that organizations are scrambling to understand.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture for the whole country. Because while the numbers for young people are incredibly alarming, the overall story is, well, it's a bit more complicated.
At first glance, you might see a little bit of good news here. The total number of suicides in Japan actually went down slightly in 2023 to 21,837. But, a single number almost never tells the whole story, right?
And this is where it gets really interesting. When you break it down by gender, you see these two trend lines just moving in completely opposite directions. For women, suicides actually decreased for the first time in 4 years, which is fantastic news. But for men, the number has gone up for the second year in a row. So any progress in one area is kind of being canceled out by a worsening situation in another.
So even with that slight overall drop, the report basically puts a giant spotlight on one group where the crisis is not getting better at all: children and teenagers. Just look at this timeline. It's brutal. You can see this clear, relentless upward trend over the last 15 years or so, from around 300 back in 2009 to that record high of 514 in 2022, and staying right at that crisis level with 513 last year. This isn't some sudden blip on the radar. It's a sustained, heartbreaking tragedy.
And this is the real puzzle in this year's report, isn't it? It makes you ask a really tough question. Why isn't this specific group, the youngest, the most vulnerable, seeing any of the improvement from the broader trend? What is going on here?
To get to the bottom of that, the report tries to unpack the why. And what it finds is that the reasons behind these numbers aren't the same for everyone. They change a lot depending on age and, as we're about to see, on gender.
Okay, so first, let's look at male students. What's the biggest driver? Overwhelmingly, it's school problems. And that's a huge category, right? It covers everything from doing poorly in class to stressing out about careers and getting into the right university.
But then you switch over to female students, and the picture changes dramatically. For them, the biggest piece of the pie is health problems. And the report is clear that this is mainly about mental health, things like depression, especially for high school girls. School is still a big deal, but that internal struggle seems to be the main factor here.
And when you zoom in even closer, you see how different the struggles are. For the littlest kids in elementary school, things like family scolding are a major factor. For older girls, it's clearly mental illness. And we have to talk about this huge gray area. For so many of these kids, the reason is listed as unknown. It's just a painful reminder of how hard it is to ever get the full story.
The report also confirms this heartbreaking pattern that experts have known about for a long time, called the post-vacation spike. The data clearly shows that suicides among students jump up on days like April 1st and especially September 1st, the day most kids go back to school after summer break. It points directly to the incredible anxiety tied to school as a major trigger.
All right, so the problem is clear, it's urgent. So what's the plan? What's being done about it? The report lays out the government's pretty comprehensive strategy to try and tackle this head-on.
They're calling it the Emergency Plan to Strengthen Suicide Countermeasures for Children, and it's got a few key parts. First, they want to use those one-to-one devices that are in most schools now to kind of keep an eye on students' mental health. Second, they're funding more safe spaces, places outside of home and school. Third, they're creating special crisis teams for kids who are at high risk. And finally, and this is so important, they're actually teaching kids how to ask for help, what they call SOS training.
But of course, a government plan is just one part of the equation, right? The white paper makes it super clear that the work being done by nonprofits and community groups on the front lines every single day is absolutely essential.
And this quote, this one from the nonprofit Childline, it really just gets right to the heart of everything. When they ask kids why they're calling their hotline, the number one reason they give is this simple sentence: I just want someone to listen. It's not always about finding a fix.
Sometimes it's just about being heard. And what's really important to understand is that helping doesn't always look the same. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. So you have an organization like Childline, which is all about active listening. And then you have another one, Lifelink, that's trying something totally different and really quite creative.
This is such a fascinating idea. Lifelink got together with a really famous author, Yoshitake Shinsuke, and they built this online space based on the idea that it's okay to hide away. It's for those kids who just aren't ready to talk yet. It's a digital refuge, a safe place where there's no pressure, because they recognize that sometimes the first step isn't speaking up, it's just finding a safe place to hide.
So when you put it all together, what's the big takeaway? It's that there's no single silver bullet here. Beating this crisis is going to take a whole network of support. Everything from those big government plans to the quiet, compassionate work of community groups who are just there to offer a listening ear or even just a safe place to hide.
In the end, after all the data and all the plans, the report kind of leaves us with this one big question. It all comes down to this. When a child is in pain, how do we, all of us, as a community, as a society, learn how to truly listen?